There's just two things I need to do before we open the floor to questions. One is to move Sophie Lehman's name tag, because currently she's Brenton Jones, so we don't want that mix up, so just fix that.
There you go. I'm not Brenton Jones.
No. The other one is just I did leave out that Ludo Manure from the Pauline Hanson's One Nation is also not in attendance today. So we will open the floor to questions now. So basically, if you could just go up to the microphone here in the centre of the floor, let us know your name and where you're from and ask your question. Hello.
Hi, I'm Susie Robertson, and I would like to know where you stand on equal pay for women. I think it's time that we were all equal. So I would like to know how you're all going to help us women, and a lot of men who don't get equal pay too, if you get into Parliament. Thank you.
Who'd like to go first?
Okay.
Yep.
Because I might not get another shot. The Animal Justice Party runs off of 4 values, and they are kindness, equality, rationality, and non-violence. And we take the equality value very seriously. And I don't think I need to say any more about that. You know, if we continue on our present rate, it will take it's a crazy amount of time, like
20 years, I think? 20 years?
20 years or something, or I thought it was longer than that, before women even get close to having wage parity with men. And that's just crazy. That's just crazy. You know, we can do better. Thank you.
Well, as a woman, I would absolutely be supporting equal pay for genders, and I think it's really important to elect women for the same reason. We need equality, we need representation of women in Parliament, and we definitely need equal pay. Yes.
Just add to that, I actually think there's situations in life where women actually deserve to be paid more. And if you have a look at childcare, for example, women are predominantly childcare workers, and you know, they're biologically designed to look after children, and they do a far better job than us men, and I won't pretend that I can do an equal job as a woman. And in a situation like that, I think women do deserve more. Thank you.
As another woman, I also agree that we need to have equal pay, but I think the first step starts with making the pay transparent, so we can see what the differences are, and then working it out from there.
I'm not a woman, but the Greens certainly stand for equality with women. We've seen in this last Liberal government, you know, terrible dereliction of women in Parliament, and we've seen that kind of for eons really, of altered rates of pay, lower status in society. So our policies aim to attack those root causes and assist women to come up, assistance with housing, with health, with education, domestic violence support, childcare. Women deserve better.
Lynn?
Agree with everything that's been said. During my time with the Australian Democrats, I was a national policy coordinator, which meant that we were very much a membership-driven party with all of our policies, and then that was one of our major policies for 30 years. So I still agree with everything that policy said, and for what's been happening recently, which is nothing. So we do need to see an improvement.
I just wanted to add, how did Tony Abbott ever end up as Minister for Women? If I get into Parliament, I will shirt front anyone that tries to do that.
Scott?
I'm in the local party, and the local party is run by women. Leanne, would you mind standing up and turning around? She runs it in the Senate. And also the organisation that I work for, Big Heart, which has grown up in Braddon, is run with a majority of women. I realise that sitting here now, I'm a white, privileged, middle-aged cis male and constantly on a learning curve, and when I'm speaking, somebody else isn't. And one of those projects is Project O, which you may be familiar with if you live locally, and that is promoting the missing part of the puzzle, which is it's fine to work for equality across a whole range of areas like salaries, but we need to start with young people, and we need to start with clearing the decks for young women to be encountering any opportunity they want locally here in Braddon and being able to see a future which is them, and that they are not held back by being a young woman who's been told certain messages as she's grown up. And just to finish, 24% of the constituents of Braddon are under the age of 19, 34% are under the age of 30, and so they are the major concern for us. So yes to salaries, yes to opportunity out in the workplace, but yes to opportunities pre-workplace and a change of culture.
Great.
It's generally been my history that women ran the footy club, the work that had to be done there. They ran the household when the men were away and had to make the decisions and do what needed to be done. Equality to me is a given, and I agree with what Darren said. In some instances they should be paid way more than what us blokes are. So yeah, it's a given. Equality, and I agree with Scott, you know, the way to just stonewall this toxic treatment of women in Canberra is to start with our young, and you treat them equally from the word go. You pay them the same rate of pay and same opportunities, and we won't be in this mess again that we've just witnessed over the last 2 years. So yeah, equality.
Duncan.
Yeah, just to sort of be transparent, we would not have, even though Lib Dems might have certain views and varying views on this issue, we just realise that to act as politicians with those values is to intervene on other people's lives. So there are many issues, but for us to, as a politician, write a policy that is removing choice in a marketplace in people's lives. So we would want to remove power for government to make those decisions. So we would do nothing as politicians, I suppose.
Anyone else? No? I think we had voice. No? Yep.
I'll just quickly chime in. For starters, thank you very much for the question. It's a brilliant one to start the day. I think we've got some legislation in place which is meant to fix a problem. It is slowly correcting course. We are getting there, as Ivan said, way slower than we should be. I think it's important that we look to ways to not just level out the actual pay gap itself, but to set up proper representation for young women, particularly around areas like STEM, where at the moment they're obviously woefully underrepresented and they're often high-paying jobs such as law, doctors, etc. The more that we can pave a way forward for women to enter those careers, the easier we'll have a time of just stopping this as a problem. And I think from the rationality perspective, it's important to note that this isn't just a moral question about making things better for women because they deserve it inherently, although there is that, but it's also just a smart capitalist move. Once we start to level out these playing fields, we'll basically be doubling the candidate pool for a lot of these roles, and it'll strengthen the economy by making it more equal and fair.
Okay. Right, we've got another question from the floor.
Speaking out. Okay, I've got a farm up the back at Aldina. I've been anti-famine, anti-forestry for a long time. I did, in the company of one other person, get the upper house to carry out its inquiry. Recently, they put out the interim review. The full report will be coming out very soon. This leads me into the Four Corners program, that pointed out JBS Swift and their movement into Australia plus many other parts of the world, in particular dear old Tassie. They have let the mafia in. The Foreign Review Board are treacherous, traitorous, should be sued, hung and quartered. I don't care what you do. You may not have seen the program. Please see the program. This is the biggest slap in the democratic face probably in my lifetime. We need to straighten them up and kick them out and jail them. They've already got Taran in up the top right left-hand corner. Bottom mob have gone. Taran equally, almost, as dangerous in the Malaysian areas and the South Pacific. Criminals, bloody criminals. I don't want you to answer anything from me now. I'm here to educate you.
We'll take that as a comment.
Hello, I'm Olivia Ford. I've just finished school last year, and a quick question I have is, during the last 2 years, it has become evident that the decisions of unelected public servants and overseas bureaucrats can have a significant impact on the quality of life of people here in northwest Tasmania. What can you tell us about the World Health Organisation's pandemic treaty, and do you support Australia signing up for it?
Who's prepared to take that one on?
I don't know much about it. It is if it's voluntary, it's okay. If Lib Dems want local governance, I suppose we want people to govern themselves, make their own rules. We need rules in our world. Coercion is required sometimes, unfortunately, it's sad, but we need to protect property rights, protect people from the aggressor, but not become the aggressor. So I'm highly suspicious, I suppose, of a lot of the unelected bureaucrats. It's easy to see, as you pointed out. So I'm cautious. I would just say, from a libertarian perspective, it would have to be voluntary.
Dr. Briggs, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. Look, I don't know much about that declaration at all. I guess just speaking from a doctor's point of view, the World Health Organization was initially chastised for not calling things out earlier. From my point of view, I've seen countless lives saved as a result of our response to the pandemic. And, you know, even despite that, our health staff have suffered immensely just from overwork and the stress, and also getting unwell themselves. As far as mandates and things go, look, you know, we've got a lot of mandates already that have been around. Like in the 60s, you had to have smallpox and diphtheria to travel around on your passport. Coming back to Australia currently, you need yellow fever vaccination from West Africa. You currently need to have your kids fully vaccinated for the routine vaccinations in Australia to receive tax supplements. And look, the slightly off topic obviously, but the mRNA vaccines have been in development for 30 years. They have amazing positive advances in the treatment of cancers and autoimmune or inflammatory diseases now that they've been supercharged by the research and development that COVID has brought on. So I get, from that point of view, you know, I've got to say we support the science-based evidence stuff, and I'd need to know more about the actual declaration to answer that further. Thanks.
Sorry, the young lady that asked that question, are you referring to the likes of the Bill Gateses of this world who seem to stick their nose in everything? Yeah. I'm trying to find it.
Was it Sophie?
Yes, it is.
Olivia, sorry. Do you think you'd be able to tell us a bit more about what it is? That you, because none of us seem to know maybe as much as you do about it.
So basically, the WHO want to take over any future pandemics with automatic. I believe it's the WHO want to take over automatic
automatically take over any future pandemics in Australia, and that would actually have full control straight away, yes? Yes. No, Federation Australia Party do not actually support the WHO and any international body that thinks that it can come in and rule over our actual local leaders and our appointed leaders in Australia. So we do not support the WHO, we do not support the United Nations as well in that regard.
I think Fenella's up next and then Craig. Yeah.
As an independent candidate for the Senate, I would also not support that. I believe we need freedom, and that's taking away our freedom.
I'd just like to say, I guess each pandemic is going to be different, so I don't think you can just use that as a precedent and then roll forward with the same response to each pandemic. So we'd probably have to look at each one as it comes and work out what needs to happen.
We'll go to Craig and then Keown. Maybe.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't support it all. One size is never fit at all for health. It's always been a personal decision. I hate the way our Prime Minister absconded from any responsibility by saying that it is a personally informed decision, and then the next minute my mates were forced to do something they shouldn't have. And generally, my knowledge, working closely and within departments and dealing with those people, they do not care about you, and if you're giving them the rights to force you to do what they deem necessary, and in the case of this pandemic where people were adversely affected and left to their own devices, that poor mother in Launceston, nobody was representing them. Nobody was talking about them. They were forced to do something that they maybe shouldn't have. There was adverse effects and they were left on their own. Governments have to take responsibility, and leadership is just totally absent right now in this country.
We'll just go to Keown and then Darren.
Yep, I'm going to keep it pretty brief. I am not familiar with the current topic that you asked about, but I just wanted to point out I would like to see more international cooperation around things like pandemics. There are things that we are going to have to face as a global community as we go forward, and I think it would be good if we could start to set up some frameworks about how we communicate from one country to another to resolve these matters in the future, so we don't all run around like headless chickens without any idea how to respond.
Darren Bobman, please.
First of all, no, I wouldn't support it either. And if we recall back commentary that's been made in the last couple of years, if you go back 2 years, they'd say, get the vaccine. You won't get sick, you won't catch COVID, you won't end up in hospital, get the second one, get the booster. You won't get this, you won't get that. Well, guess what? Was it a lie? Were we misled? Were we deceived? I'll let you determine that question. But why are we having record... I read the other day, I think it was 300 ambulance calls a day, was it? A record number? 300 call-outs a day. Why is there 300 call-outs for ambulances all of a sudden? Is it adverse reactions? I don't know again, but I'm certainly open to people providing me information. But I do recall the last couple of years where they said that you wouldn't get sick, you wouldn't end up in hospital, and that didn't turn out too well for many people, did it? And I also mentioned the modelling as well earlier on, which I questioned this government, and it's now 3 times over what their modelling suggested. So when they say trust the experts, I think you're the expert, you make the decision, it's your body.
Okay, we'll just hear from Lynn now and then Scott as well.
Again, it's all about informed choices. We're not being informed about what this particular treaty is. I don't know the wording of it. I don't know what it entails, but I would definitely not support us signing it. If we don't know what it is, how can we agree to sign it? We're Australians. It's our choices. These choices are being taken away from us all the time. The last 2 years, choices have been made for us. We've been forced to do things we don't want to do, and I don't agree with it.
I kind of feel a large limb that I'm walking out on with this answer. So, Olivia, thanks very much for the leadership you're showing with the question. I really appreciate it. I tried to Google it secretly under the table, but there's only one bar, so we might have to do something about digital inclusion first.
It's a conspiracy.
But I just wanted to say, I didn't hear, so I can't respond politely. Sorry. Well, it's on silent, but thank you for the leadership showing. Just wanted to say this, and this is the limb bit. The World Health Organization has looked at Big Heart and its work over a 4-year period, and it was looking specifically at communities where there were murders that we were working and suicides and a whole range of mental health issues that were driving a lack of safety. I found their operatives in the field, the people who were doing the analysis, to be absolutely amongst the best people who've evaluated us. I'm not talking about World Health Organization overall necessarily, but I think we have to be very careful of the male combative spirit that tries to denigrate everyone working in an enormous organisation, whilst we're still trying to pick our way through, are they good and bad? And secondly, I just wanted to say this, that I would think that the most dangerous structure globally now is the way in which unelected CEOs working with chairpersons in the very pinnacle of the capitalist approach to economics, they are, without our consent, wielding enormous power on public opinion in ways that haven't happened since Julius Caesar. And so we are sitting, in one sense, like sitting ducks. You probably could shoot one of them, because no work is being done on the scale of it. And I'll just say this, I don't mean it disrespectfully, but to give you an idea, Jeff Bezos, the Amazon dude, unfortunately his marriage fell apart a few years ago. When he settled with his partner, and she got an enormous payout, it's not my business to say what, but an enormous payout. It took Jeff, during the pandemic, 31 days to get that money back. That is the rate of growth of these nation states. And I don't want to push a conspiracy theory. I would just say to you, Olivia, in the world that you will run, when I'm an old guy on a vinyl mattress lying in my own puddle of piss, in a dysfunctional old aged care system because it's been put out to profit, for people to run it by profit, I'll need you to be very careful about the constraints around the World Health Organisations, but the lack of constraints around the very top end of the way capitalism is now being done.
Right, I know Darren wants to speak a little bit more on this subject, but we might... Okay, thank you for your comment. We've got another question from the floor here.
The Clean Oceans. I have a question which just requires a yes or no answer. Do you, and if elected, will you oppose salmon feedlots going to the Commonwealth waters of Bass Strait?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I would be in federal politics, so I would want local Tasmanians to make that decision.
Sorry, I missed the question. I just got Darren to rephrase it to me, but yes. Yeah. Oh, I hope it was, do I oppose them? And that's yes.
And I was going to say, Greens have opposed or been calling out the salmon industry in Tasmania since 2014-15 with the same concerns that the community are raising now. So I believe we're very consistent, and looking at the science, it's bad. They shouldn't be there.
So that a full yes group there, I think.
I wonder if that was clear. Do we need a hands up yes?
So hands up for yes. and there's one maybe down the end.
Actually,
there, but I think everyone else is pretty clear.
Unanimous.
Yeah, pretty unanimous.
Which is good for my question.